Hello Year 7. In this video, I'm going to talk you through how you can use the OETWES structure to write a language analysis piece of writing. So in this lesson, you have been given a question that we're going to focus on today. And the question I've written at the top of this sheet of paper, and it's on your PowerPoint as well for your lesson. So the question that we're being asked and that we'll have to answer is, how has the writer used language in this blog post to persuade the reader? And just a quick recap of the OETWES structure. We use this in English language to help us to structure our language analysis and our structure analysis questions. So the first thing that we're going to need to do today is we're going to need to read the opening question, and we need to create a strong opening point. Essentially, we're going to need to come up with a really good sentence or two that's going to actually answer this question. We then need to get onto our actual analysis. So we'll need to pick out a piece of evidence from the text that demonstrates our point. Then we need to identify a technique that's been used. So in this case, it will be a language technique because we're being asked about language. Then we need to write why we think the writer has used that technique. And then finally in our paragraph, we will need to write about the effect, so what it does to the reader. What does it make the reader think or feel or imagine or believe? There's a whole host of words that we could use there. Then we're going to write another paragraph, or you're going to write another paragraph after you've seen this video. So let's get started. I'm going to put this to one side. I'm just going to adjust this to make sure that you can see. And as we write today, as you can see, I've created a little colour code. I'm going to colour code my writing so you can see where the different sections of ETW are. So the first thing that I need to do is I need to create a strong opening point to answer the question. So really, I need to focus on what the question is actually asking me. So what is the writer actually persuading us? Yes, he's persuading us, but what is he actually trying to convince us of? So here's what I'm going to say. I'm going to say that the writer has used a variety of persuasive techniques So I'm signalling here that I understand that they're asking me about persuading. And what is he actually trying to do? So he's trying to convince the reader. Now, that's an opening point, but it's quite weak at the moment. I need to explain exactly what he's trying to convince the reader of. So I've read the blog post, and I think that the writer is trying to convince the reader that innocent are an ethical company. Now, if you're not sure what this word ethical means, if you are ethical, that means that you have strong morals. So you always prioritize doing the right thing. So the writer's really saying in this blog post that Innocent, they're not just a company that care about making money at the expense of everything else. They're a company that care about everything else around them as well, the important things like people and the environment. And actually, to make this point even stronger, I could actually put that into my opening point. So Innocent are an ethical company. Let's write down some of those ideas. They're an ethical company who, so let's get rid of that, who prioritise the environment and people's well-being rather than just making money. That's a really strong opening point, because what I've signalled is that I understand that the writer's using persuasive techniques, but I've also specified what he's trying to convince the reader. He's trying to convince the reader that they're ethical and I've just explained a little bit what I mean there as well. So ethical means they're prioritising the environment and people's well-being, so how people feel, rather than just making money like a lot of companies do. So really good opening points. I'm going to highlight that in pink to match my key. Lovely. So now I need to move on to my evidence. What quote could I use that would support that? Okay, so for example, the writer says, open up my quote, and I'm going to pick the quote, "We've always been kind to people on the planet." People and the planet, because I think that really nicely exemplifies the point that I've just made. Good stuff. Right, you can see I've picked blue for my evidence, so I'm just going to highlight that so you can see the difference there. Lovely. So quite short, my evidence. Okay, now I want to show off that I can use some subject terminology, so technical terms that we use in English to describe a language. So these are the sorts of persuasive techniques that you've just done a quiz on. So I can actually see there's a couple of persuasive techniques in this quote. We've got some emotive language, particularly this word kind. But we've also got the use of personal pronouns as well, personal pronoun we as well. So actually what I'm going to do in this paragraph, rather than just write about one, I'm actually going to see if I can write about two techniques, because that will really help to elevate my response, help to get a higher mark. So I'm going to start my sentence by saying the writer has used several persuasive techniques. Including emotive language, that word kind, and personal pronouns. Okay. Don't worry, by the way, if you can only think of one technique, that's still fine. This is just if you're really pushing yourself to get those higher grades. If you can spot multiple techniques, or if you can zoom into keywords, that's always good to do if you can do so. So I've picked the colour yellow for this. I'm just going to highlight my technique in yellow. You don't need to highlight your paragraph at home, by the way. I'm just using these colours to show you the different sections of our structure. Okay, so I'm halfway there. What I need to do now is I need to explain why the writer has used these techniques. So, because I picked two. So I'm going to start with the emotive language. I'm going to start by saying the emotive adjective kind. And why has the writer used this? So I'm going to say it has been used to portray innocence, and that word portray, that just means show, to portray innocence as a company who care about the well-being of others. Okay, so I've talked about my emotive language, and just to point out as well, notice I didn't say the emotive word, I said the emotive adjective, and I've done that because it's really good to use technical terms wherever possible within your writing. So it's always good to use adjective, verb or noun instead of word. But I've not just used one technique, have I? I've also pointed out that we've got personal pronouns as well. So I'm also just going to talk a little bit about why I think the writers use that pronoun we. So I'm going to use a connective additionally. The personal pronoun we. Still using my quotes. Personal pronoun we creates a welcoming tone. Which is going to feel quite nice for the reader, isn't it? But we'll get on to that in a second. Okay, so I've got my why is the writer used the technique, and I'm just going to highlight this in the colour purple so you can see how the sections are split up. Fabulous, we're nearly finished. The final thing that we just need to do is to think about the effect on the reader, and notice that the E, the effect, is much bigger than the other letters, and there's a reason for that. When we talk about the effect, we want this to be the most detailed part of our paragraph. So we've put this as a larger E just to remind you of that, because that's what you get really the most marks for. So we can always use, we can think about what it does to the reader. I always think to myself, well, what does it make the reader think, feel, imagine, believe? The sort of different verbs that we could use there. I'm going to go for the word feel to start with. So this makes the reader feel like innocent. I'm going to use that word welcoming again. This makes the reader feel like innocent are welcoming. Now, I don't just want to stop there, because if I just said they're welcoming them again, that's just repeating what I've already said, really, isn't it? What are they welcoming them to do? Well, they're welcoming their reader to make the reader feel like they're going to join their mission. So welcoming them to join their mission to make the world a better place. So the reader feels like they're included in what Innocent are doing. How could I develop this then? Because we want this to be the biggest section to get the most marks. We want it to be really detailed. So how else is the reader going to feel, or what else is the reader likely to do because of this? Well, I think the reader's probably more likely to actually trust Innocent as a company if they're being very friendly and very welcoming, and they're saying that they're very kind. So I'm going to write about that as well. So the reader is also more likely to trust Innocent as a company because they describe themselves as kind. Now, I'm going to see if I can be a little bit perceptive here. And that word perceptive just means I'm going to try and see if I can notice something that maybe not everybody would think to write about, something that's perhaps a little bit deeper, a little bit of a hidden meaning, not very obvious. I'm going to think about why Innocent has actually written this blog post in the first place. Well, I think as a company, yes, okay, they want to tell us that they're a really kind company and a really ethical company. But actually, what's their end goal? They're a company and they do want to make money, don't they? So one final thing that I think is that this would actually also make the reader more likely to want to buy Innocent's movies because they think Innocent's a really good company, a really nice company to work for, that care about them, that care about the planet. So I'm going to add that to my answer because that's a really perceptive point. Okay, let's see. So this would, also make them, reader, more likely to buy, innocent smoothies. Because people like supporting companies who seem to care about others. And do good in the world. Okay, there you have it. So I have my effect. You notice it's the most detailed part of the paragraph. Now you've seen my paragraph. Your teacher is going to ask you to write a second paragraph of your own. So just to remind you, when you use the OETWES structure, you only need one opening point at the start. So we've got one opening point at the start. When you start your next paragraph, you don't need to do another opening point. You can jump straight into another piece of evidence. So another quote that shows what you've said in your opening point. Then you need to give a technique, why the writer has used the technique and what the effect is. And remember to aim for as much detail as possible. The more detail you can put in your paragraphs, the higher your grade will be. Once you've written your paragraph, can you write, please, a sum up sentence? So that's a sentence that says overall sums up what I've said in this paragraph and also what you've said in your paragraph as well. Thank you for watching Year 7 and good luck.